Oh man.
Is
Wow,
my number one.
That is such a dirt trash mustache. And here we go. It is time for another episode of Cash's Top 5. It's going to be a fun one today. My buddy Nate Jones joining us. Now, I'm not sure exactly when we met. That's when you know it's a good friendship because we have a mutual friend, good friend of ours, John. We spent a lot of time together when he got married last year, and then we just kind of reconvened up in northern Indiana for his baby shower, he and his wife, expecting a little one later this year. So we were talking, we came up with some fun things to argue with, and we're doing a fun top 5 today, and I'm really excited for it. What are we doing, Nate?
Yeah, inspired by a couple of drinks, we are doing top 5 mustaches of all time.
Tons to choose from. I don't really know, like even if we were trying to do a top 10, I think that would still be difficult.
Yeah, I think I'll be curious to hear if we get to it, the honorable mentions list, because there's just so many iconic mustaches, and I got weird with some of them. So we'll see.
Good. All right, man. Well, we're doing our top 5 mustaches. Let's go ahead and kick it off. Nate, what do you got at number 5, man?
Yeah, so this is sort of iconic to my childhood, as almost all of these are. And maybe flying under the radar, but I have Fluff Cowan. And if you're not familiar, that is Tiger Woods' original caddy, still a caddy on the PGA Tour. Guy just floats around.
Wow.
But his mustache, if you Google it, is bigger than his face. It's just this iconic gray and white mustache. I have no clue, honestly, like how he eats, because it's not like a well-kept mustache that stops at the lip. It's like,
oh man, this guy.
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
that's Fluff.
Wow.
Just showers down to his bottom lip. So again, like I just assume he eats with a straw.
So my question for you, does the yellow bother you at all in this mustache?
That's what makes it so great. Like he just, there's nothing like sexy or like, well done about that mustache, but it's just like, I can't imagine that, like seeing him without a mustache would almost be frightening to me.
Yeah.
And I think it has probably progressed over the years. When he was back with Tiger originally, like now he's just, I think, cared less and less in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's either gone downhill or uphill, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Well, I don't know. Have you noticed, because when I was a kid, my folks would watch 60 Minutes on Sunday nights, and Andy Rooney was still on, and he would do his "I'm an old man and I'm mad" bit, and he'd have these crazy eyebrows. And you see old men who have crazy mustaches that are unkempt, like Fluff Cowan. By the way, if we did the top 5 names of all time, Fluff Cowan is up there with his mustache. But I realize just how little I look into a mirror now. Like it's a quick comb the hair, make sure that, I don't need to shave anything, but I'm not inspecting at all. So if I was like a random eyebrow or, I get it now. I get why those old dudes are totally oblivious to it.
Well, I think you stop caring less. And similar to you, except when you go to like a hotel and they have like probably the correct lighting and you turn on the lights in there and it's like, holy cow, like no lights in this bathroom.
Have you been in a hotel that has that lighting and they have the normal mirror, but then they also have that circular mirror that's the magnifying mirror?
Correct. Always turn that away.
That was the biggest bummer of my life. When I saw what I really look like, all the pores and stuff, I'm like, oh God, man, no wonder I'm single. This is terrible.
Yeah, I fared far better before HD cameras came along.
All right, man. The Walrus, Fluff Cowan at number 5. That is a strong lead. My number 5 for you is also a little bit of a sentimental pick. There's a couple of those, but my number 5, singer-songwriter, one of my favorite musicians of all time. I'm a little bummed we didn't get to see what it eventually could have become because he tragically died in a plane crash at 30 years old. But Jim Croce Bad Leroy Brown with the stash, man. I mean, that's totally 70s. That's sitting on a bar stool with an acoustic guitar and a cigarette dangling from your lips, singing some great tunes. It's a great stash, and I'm so bummed we didn't get to see it gray and go white and how it possibly could have gone more, but it's a strong one.
That is an incredible choice. And obviously I'm Googling and looking at images right now of Jim Croce, and this guy died at 30.
1973. He was 30 or 31, maybe. I could be wrong.
I mean this in the most respectable way possible, but Jim looks like he had a tough life.
It's interesting you say that, because it is weird how when you see pictures of adults back in the day, they just look older than what we like. I feel like, because I'm going to be 33 in October. I don't think I look older than Jim Croce there.
No, not in the least. Well, it's like, I feel like they look significantly older. And like, I watch even college athletes nowadays, and I'm like, you look like you're like 10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Which is not a terrible thing. Also, never knew Jim Croce was the artist for Bad Leroy Brown.
He's got tons of hits, man. Operator, Time in a Bottle, You Don't Mess Around with Jim. Those are the major hits, and he's got a lot of deep cuts that are really good too. Working at the Car Wash Blues. Yeah. Croce's the man.
Like, I know what I'll be doing for the rest of my evening is just listening to Jim Croce hits.
Yeah, man. Curating that Spotify playlist. I love it.
And aspiring to have a mustache as beautiful as his one day. He almost looks like a mix of like Albert Einstein and I don't know who else, Geraldo maybe?
Like Einstein and Luigi from Mario Brothers.
Yes.
He's got that kind of slender with the black curly hair look. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, man. Fluff Cowan at number 5. I'm curious. There's going to be so many great stashes on both of our lists. Who do you have at number 4?
You maybe just gave us the most perfect segue of all time. Number 4 on my list is Luigi's brother, Mario.
Really? No way. Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Going fictional character here.
I was not expecting that.
I will confess that I spent entirely, like, I don't want to admit, but entirely too much time looking at men and mustaches over the weekend. And, there's just fictional characters, and I've looked at every mustache that you probably could ever see. And yeah, Mario just feels like an iconic mustache. Again, representative of my youth, with just Mario, the game. I mean, who hasn't played Mario Kart that is either under the age of 40 or over the age of 3? Not like, I put a note down here is like, what do you think Mario would look like without a mustache? Like, is that like little kid Mario from?
I don't know. I feel like there's probably a character in another Super Nintendo game that is Mario without a mustache, and I don't want to ruin that. Like, I want, you know what I'm saying? I want to keep that alive. That delusion that's somehow a real character. Also, probably the largest or longest journey of mustache on any of our lists is the Mario, because you're starting with 8-bit graphics, so it looks like a little Lego piece, and now in 4K, Mario on the Nintendo Switch has gone from block to, I'm assuming you can zoom in and get a really good look at that totally coiffed mustache.
Do you think, in your opinion, and maybe this is harkening back to our conversation earlier, that we would be better now in 8-pixel, or do we prefer ourselves in 4K? And same for Mario.
I think I prefer the 8-bit or 64-bit. And I say that because, we both had a graduation open house for high school. And that's when it's the opportunity for your parents or your family members to put up picture collages from when you were a baby, from your first day of kindergarten or whatever. And I just think there's something cool about having it being on film. It's slightly yellowed, it's a little grainy, or there's like the little There's a little thumb, on the picture. Kids now, when they graduate, are going to have super clear, ultra 1080p, 4K, whatever quality pictures. And I just don't know that you get the same nostalgia. You don't get the same punch, the same emotion as you do. So I've recommended to all my kids, and I'm going to do this for John and Jenny too, when they have their little one in October, is get half a dozen disposable cameras, get an old school Polaroid, and take a bunch of old school photographs, not digital pics where there's 1,200 of them on your phone. I think people are going to want that analog emotion in an emotionless digital world, if that makes sense.
I couldn't agree more. And there is nothing more enjoyable than my grandparents, my grandmother used to keep has stacks of just photo albums of, the, 4x3 Polaroids.
Yeah.
Or standard. And it's just scrolling through that is so much more enjoyable than flipping through your phone, just looking at, a bunch of photos. So I would agree with that and think everyone should start their own photo album.
They should. And maybe not go back to 8-bit. That may be a little too not good enough. But I definitely want it to be a little more crude than the super HD.
Yeah, there's a nice happy medium in there for all of us.
Yeah. My number 4 for you is a real guy, but lived the life of a fictional character in some ways because he had an incredible life. And a precursor. I'm not trying to go too hipster on you here, Nate, because I feel like everybody loves Steve Harvey. He is the mustache. He might appear on your list later on. He is not on mine, but the one that came before Steve Harvey, African-American comedian, world famous. You could tell him by his voice. Richard Pryor had the ultimate stash. And what made it so funny is I know in this picture, he's not smiling, but even when he's smiling, his mustache is still pointed down like it's frowning on top of his face. And the expressions that he was able to make with that mustache, it was almost like it was a part of the act as well. And I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan. My heroes, George Carlin and Richard Pryor, kind of the bird and the magic, 80s basketball versus 70s comedy. Just an incredible story, and that mustache is unstoppable.
I love that choice. Richard was on my list at one point, and I think a comedian that followed him that maybe, and if he's on your list, I hate to spoil that, he's not on mine, but Eddie Murphy. I'm curious to know how much Eddie Murphy's mustache was inspired from Richard Pryor, because I think Eddie Murphy probably has looked up to Richard Pryor in a lot of ways and followed a similar career to a certain extent. But I think he also has an iconic mustache, and probably some of that is an ode to Richard Pryor.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that even if it's subconscious, he's not necessarily, because I don't know that it's deliberate, but it's in there. I would be willing to bet.
If you had one recommendation for a Richard Pryor stand-up to watch, what would it be?
Oh man. Live at Sunset Strip, I think was 77, was really good. But I want to say the one in 82, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's the one after he shot his car when he was high and burned himself up because he was freebasing cocaine, and he tells the story and he lights the match, and incredible pain. And the laughter that he gets with those stories is unparalleled. So Live at the Sunset Strip 77, I think, is really fun. But I think it's 82 is the one after he burned himself up. They both look pretty similar. Big, huge concert hall. One, he's got the red, and another, he's got the white. But I would start there.
I mean, just that story is the 70s were different, man. That's
it's a completely different world, man.
Just freebasing. What a time to be alive. That's my biggest regret in life, is being born when I was.
No, because trust me, I'm sure you value your health that you have now that you would not have if you were alive at those times.
I'm very lucky to be alive, and it would have been gone years ago if I had been born in the 70s, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right, we've got Fluff Cowan, we've got Mario. I have no idea where you're going to go with this number 3, but I'm fascinated. Who do you got?
I feel like they're less exciting and more iconic. The next on the list for me is what I will say is probably the most iconic mustache on my list from just a recognition standpoint. One of the easiest costumes for Halloween, and again, one of the most iconic mustaches of all time is Tom Selleck. Probably not even Tom Selleck, like Magnum PI would actually be who I'd put up there, but obviously,
yes.
Tom being the individual that plays that. And I appreciate that Tom has stuck with that same mustache his entire life. There's different folks that, go through phases of mustaches or mustaching. Is that a word?
It is now.
But yeah, he's just committed from day one. There's not a photo of Tom Selleck out there that I could find where he doesn't have that beautiful, perfectly trimmed mustache in place.
That is one mustache that I am jealous of, which isn't a normal thing to say, I guess, but because that was a time traveling mustache. I mean, 80s Magnum PI. I mean, that's as cool as it got with that stash. I mean, Tom Selleck as Magnum in Hawaii, got the car, got the babes, the stash, cool. But then he kind of has a revival in the mid 90s when he's dating Monica Geller on Friends, and he's kind of like the elder statesman. It's kind of a butt of some of the jokes about he's an older guy, he's about to be a grandpa. But that stash still gets all the women. And it's like, dude, save some for the rest of us. Much respect to Tom Selleck and that stash.
Yeah. Is there any more, iconic life that you'd want to live? It's like driving a Ferrari, wearing Hawaiian shirts, having a sweet mustache, and just cruising around Hawaii.
You can't tell him nothing, man. That's a cool character right there.
Correct.
So my number 3 for you, Nate, we are ranking our top 5 favorite mustaches of all time. Would have ranked lower, but because it was taken from us, I have to give it the reverence it deserves. And when we talk about defining our childhood and defining a generation, it started in the 70s, but to me, 1990s, slightly gray, a little salt and pepper. The mustache at number 3 is the host of Jeopardy, RIP, the great one, Alex Trebek. And the reason I want to give its reverence, he shaved it off. I don't remember exactly when. It was probably in the early 2000s, but I remember Jeopardy came on back from break and he had shaved it off. And it was truly remarkable that made a ripple in pop culture. I mean, it made news. It made headlines that Alex Trebek lost the mustache. And we slowly got used to it over time as he got a little older and a little older. But when you look at those 70s and he's got like the black poofy hair and that stash, but then it got a little more refined, a little more gentlemanly into the 90s. Trebek mustache number 3.
An incredible choice, and was certainly on the. You can't think of a mustache and not think of Alex Trebek. He may go down as one of just the quietly funniest people of all time to not host a comedy show. Some of his little one-liners that he just gives digs at some of the contestants are just incredible, and I certainly respect the crap out of him.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, and I think especially in today's day and age of witch hunts, and we don't want to get into cancel culture, but it feels like things are popping up all the time about, God, I like that guy, but now I hear about this, he's a terrible guy. A sustained career of success and excellence that he had. No scandals, no problems, no drama, just a quiet. I mean, can you name his wife? Can you name his children? Can you name anything other than he's Canadian and he hosted Jeopardy forever?
Yeah.
What a dude. I mean,
that's pretty good way to go if you're going to go out on top.
It is. All right. We're getting close to the top. Number 2, who do you have?
Yeah. I might pull a last minute switcheroo here on number 2 and number 1.
Oh, wow. Really?
Uh,
It's that because it's that close. I know.
it's that close, and I'm gonna do it. So my original number one, now number two. Uh, this but probably really doesn't need an introduction of any sort. It is Mike Ditka.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, you can just say it. You don't even need Mike. Just say Ditka, man.
Ditka, yes. For any folks out there that didn't know who Ditka was, I figured I'd add the precursor of Mike. Actually, didn't know his first name was Mike until just recently. But like thinking of that guy, just a Bears sweater or Bears. Yep, that is the most iconic look. Throw some aviators on there. The greatest Halloween costume of all time. I know I said that about Tom Selleck as well and Magnum PI, but like Mike Ditka is just still a god in Chicago. I mean, the Bears have been terrible since they last won a Super Bowl in '87. And still, like, this guy walks around and probably hasn't paid for a drink in years and is the coolest dude in Chicago.
How impressive is it too that Chicago is obviously a big city. I mean, Chicago is a big deal. But can you name another instance where just a one-time coach became a punchline? I mean, I'm talking about the Bears, Saturday Night Live, modeling the characters. They all had the walrus mustache from Chicago. They had the glasses. They had the beard. They were eating the brats. I mean, it permeated American culture. I mean, you can't name another coach, I don't think. I mean, people know who Krzyzewski is. They know who Phil Jackson is. The Last Dance was huge last year. But Ditka was a voice. It was an impression. It was a Halloween costume. Still to this day, you're going to see Ditka impersonators. It is, I mean, and a lot of it, to your point, is the stash.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And I don't, as you say those things out loud, I don't know if I can think of a more iconic coach figure in America, not just Chicago.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's pretty short list of folks. So yeah, he's up there number two. Although like a tough bar to be at number one.
I'm so excited to hear who number one is, because I really thought Ditka was going to be your number one. I know you're a region rat, so I was like, he's going to have Ditka up there. I just know he is. So excellent. Ditka at number two. My number two for you is a fictional character, but it is a real man who it was his real stash. One of the funniest shows in television history, in my opinion, and it was set in our great state of our home state of Indiana. But Nick Offerman's Ron Swanson, the stash to end all stashes except for our number one picks. Just the coolest dude, lives by his own code. It's almost like it was his Samson's hair getting cut. When Ron lost the mustache, he got kind of wimpy because his ex-wife Tammy came back and kind of neutered him, and then he grew the stash back and he was back to all the bacon and eggs you can have, like the ultimate cool. You can't mess with him, and he's like the manly man. He knows how to fix a flat tire. He knows how to woodwork. He can work with his hands. He's everybody's dad. He's a master on the grill. Ron Swanson is that guy, and that stash is so cool.
Ron Swanson is everything that like I aspire to be, but will never be. Do you think an amazing choice? Do you think that show and that character is as beloved without the mustache?
I don't think so. I think the mustache makes it iconic, because if you were to do kind of a silhouetted, colored out drawing or painting of, or like kind of a caricature, it starts and ends with the mustache. He's got the kind of the coif back, the part, high and tight cut. He's got the plain brown polo, but no. It does not take on icon status, I don't think, because it is the exclamation point on the virility and the manliness. You know, I read Tina Fey's autobiography, Bossy Pants, several years ago, and she had tried making her dad, I think his name's Don Fey, into a bit on SNL because he is this mountain climbing, rough and tumble, Teddy Roosevelt bully boxing kind of guy. And you start to realize, like, and she's obviously really close with all the SNL writers, Mike Schur, Amy Poehler, Greg Daniels, that went on to create Parks and Rec. I'm like, Ron Swanson is Tina Fey's dad. And then they ended up doing some scouting in LA, talking to local government officials, and they found one who was working in local government that hates government. Like he's based on a real person. I think it was a woman. I don't remember her name, but she was literally trying to get higher up into the government to bring it down. Like, that's not a fake thing. So they took elements of Tina Fey's dad, that government official, and made one of the most iconic characters of all time, and ultimately an amazing stash.
I know what I'm about, son.
So quotable, easily the most quotable stash on our lists, I gotta say.
You're probably lying if you say you haven't watched, like, you know, greatest Ron Swanson moments on YouTube at some point in your.
It's a weekly or monthly occurrence. I go like, I had a bad day, I'm gonna watch some Ron Swanson and cheer myself up.
Yeah, it's a great way to get a little boost of happiness in your life.
Yeah. So we got Fluff Cowan, we've got Mario Brothers, Magnum PI himself, Tom Selleck. We've got Hurricane Mike Ditka at number 2. Cannot believe he's not your number 1, which makes me think I now have a guess of who your number 1 is now that I think about it. But Nate Jones, number 1 mustache of all time. Who do you got?
Who's your guess, out of curiosity?
I'll tell you after you. I don't want to ruin it. You tell me and I'll tell you if I'm right or wrong.
Okay. Also, homage to, you know, where I'm from. This is the trashiest mustache of all time, maybe second to Adam Morrison,
God.
who was on the list as well. But Larry Bird, the legend,
oh man,
is my number 1.
That is such a dirt trash mustache. The hick from French Lick, man. It's just little blonde hair is just barely hanging on. That's hilarious.
It's like Larry in the league, you know, looks like a guy from Indiana, and then he grows out, you know, he has this mustache, and it's like, you couldn't look any more Indiana. And like, and I mean that I'm from Indiana, like the most endearing way possible, and you know, couldn't be more proud to have Larry and that mustache. Correct. Yeah, it's like
barely see it.
You know, coincidentally enough, John Fettig, our buddy, like John, when he grows out, you know, he's got a full-on blonde, you know, beard and mustache. He gets a little bit of Larry vibes when he gets the first inklings of his mustache out there.
Really, I haven't seen that in a while. Usually I see him, he's mountain man, and then next time I see him, it's clean shaven. I'm like, you have no in between, bud. So yeah, I've missed out.
So yeah, that's my number 1. And
wow, you blindsided me. I honestly thought you were going to go Phil Jackson in the 90s, which is kind of the cousin to the Trebek, very similar shape and salt and pepper color. And I figured if you went Ditka, I was like, oh man, Phil's not on this list. But great pick with the number 1. That is straight up white trash. I love it. Oh my God.
Staying true to my roots. And, you know, Phil just had too many variations of facial hair, you know, between Fu Manchu and then the mustache. And yeah, but he was certainly on the list here.
So we've reached my number 1. Again, Jim Croce, Richard Pryor, Alex Trebek, and Ron Swanson were my 5 through 2. Pull up the picture here so we can get, because this is a little bit of a deeper cut. I know this may be a little bit of a hipster pick, but I don't care. I just recently finished an amazing series on Amazon Prime called Bosch. It's a detective series, and I know what you're thinking, God, just what we need, another cop show. But it's actually really good, and it stars Titus Welliver, who I knew who he was, but I didn't realize that was his name. I'd only seen him in other things. He is the uncle of the girl who is kidnapped in Gone Baby Gone, the Ben Affleck directed, Casey Affleck starring movie. Titus Welliver in Gone Baby Gone rocks this bad boy, and it is my number one. Look at that glorious stash.
Is that real?
That is real, my friend. It goes all the way. Let me see if I can get a better light on it. Look at that.
Doing a Google image search and that like,
oof. Number
that's
one, man.
Incredible. The sheer just girth of that thing is.
Yeah, it's aggressive. It's like it's trying to give you a hug. Like it's lurching. It's in 3D, man.
That is the most underrated number one that I think could have been given, and not at all where I thought this was going to go.
Are you a little impressed, like I am, that we didn't have any crossovers at all?
I am. I figured there's just like seemingly some iconic, but what I appreciate about you, Kash, I think you probably thought through this and were like, okay, like these are some like the obvious choices, and deferred maybe away from some of those.
Well, to me, there were the Holy Triumvirate that I stayed away from because I felt like they were all kind of similar, and that is Tom Selleck, Burt Reynolds, and then Sam Elliott. Now, Sam Elliott has a little bit more of a walrus than those other guys, but they were all kind of similar. And my Jim Croce, to me, has a much more emotional connection for me personally, and that, to me, is the same mustache. So I can't have the same, like, 70s porn stash, like boom, 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 boom. So I really wanted to represent different styles. And I feel like I didn't sacrifice quality with that at all. I was very happy with, and these are my 5 favorite. Now, that being said, it was still very hard to knock this down to 5. Did you have, you were reworking your list while we're doing this. Did you have a couple honorable mentions that didn't quite make it?
I did, yeah. I could just run. I mean, Adam Morrison was on there just because, I mean.
The struggle stash?
The struggle, it's just like, the greatest, like, 30 seconds of fame was Adam Morrison and Gonzaga. And then, that mustache just was tough. But I had Mr. Monopoly on there.
Ooh, yeah, good pick.
Who, didn't make it. Yosemite Sam was very close to being number 5.
Oh, the red handlebar. Man, you really thought fictional. I didn't even think to go too far off the reservation there. That's great.
Yeah, I think Ron Burgundy was up there, but felt a little too easy for me.
Yeah, no, that's where it's your list has integrity, where that's probably the fan favorite. But if you're being honest with yourself, does it match up with the others? I don't know that it does.
No, and the last one was Hulk Hogan, which also iconic.
The Hogan, yeah, that is good. I had a couple of honorable mentions. The Sam Elliott was one of them, the Walrus, Wilford Brimley.
Voice.
Yeah, coupled with the voice. Wilford Brimley from diabetes. He had kind of a walrus. They all have that Andy Reid kind of, he eats steak for every meal kind of look. And then another deep cut. Did you ever do Nick at Night when you were a kid? Like watch the old school shows?
I did, yeah.
During the summer, it was like Monday was all I Love Lucy. Tuesday was all the Jeffersons. Well, one of the nights was Welcome Back Kotter night. And Gabe Kaplan from Welcome Back Kotter looks like Jim Croce's, little brother there. It was just a great stash.
Looking now.
One I didn't mention, but I just thought of that I should have thought of. Groucho Marx, old school, painted on paint grease paint. The classic glasses, mustache, and cigar, the disguise or whatever. That's iconic. Wow. That's a good look.
If for anyone listening, Google Groucho Marx. That is incredible. Wow.
Yeah. Probably disqualification though, because it's not a real stash. I mean, it is painted on, but still iconic nonetheless.
I mean, that somewhat disappointing. I'd respect him more if that was real.
Yeah. Any mustaches that you absolutely hated? Because that would be funny.
You know, it's iconic, and like, I don't know, like, hate is not a strong word. It just like, I didn't ever really understand it because I felt like I get it, but I don't get it. And I think like good looking dude and like would have, I mean, he can't be any more iconic than he is, but like Prince's mustache. Like,
that's such a random one. I love it.
It just like looked, yeah, just looked like it was, you know, drawn on it at times.
Yeah.
I just never sat well with me.
It had the thin John Waters kind of look, just the kind of little. The only one I really hated, I think, is the Salvador Dali.
I don't know if I know Salvador Dali.
Surrealist painter. He did the melting clocks, and it was like grease, like pulled out. It was all twisted together and pulled out, like whiskers, kind of. It was a weird. Yeah, if you're pulling it up, it's a little freaky.
Anyone that's had a mustache, like when it gets to a certain, you know, point, you know, it starts like tickling your nose and like, just,
yeah, you want to get rid of it.
Yeah, and like you go through a whole lifetime of this, just like when you wake up in the morning, is it still like that? Like, how do you sleep with that? You just have to sleep.
Man.
I mean, I'm a face sleeper, so like, you know, my face is just in the pillow.
And I know you need to get going, but I just thought of one that should have on my list. Oh man, I'm gonna regret
your show, man. You can put it back on there. We'll
just include it as an honorable mention. Dustin Hoffman and Hook.
A great mustache.
It's a more elegant Salvador Dali,
but is that real?
That's his real stash for sure. Like when they do the close up and it starts to, like, with the clock, it's like ticking with the clock. I don't know. That's a good one. All right. We could be here for 3 hours talking about mustaches. Nate, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, man. I know you got to get going, but I had a lot of fun. I have a really good feeling we'll do another one of these, probably another mundane one like mustaches. But be well, and we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Kash.